I'm Billy S, welcome back to the channel. A few weeks ago, I ranked my definitive top 15 hardest boss fights in Soulsborne, as a last-ditch effort to have my feelings validated before Shadow of the Erdtree launches in June. Now we're flipping the coin as I talk about my top 15 easiest bosses in Soulsborne. I took a list of 25 bosses from across the Soulsborne games, put them into an easy elo ranker, and decided to use the results gained to format today's list. I did do an easiest bosses in each Soulsborne game feature last year, but that's horribly outdated with my current opinions, so we have 10 honourable mentions, let's blast through them. At number 25, the Ancient Wyvern from Dark Souls 3. While defeating this boss is insanely easy, I do think that the journey to reaching the top of the area is fraught with peril, and I've died to the regular enemies here more than I probably should have. At number 24, Yhorm the Giant from Dark Souls 3. For some reason, I just don't struggle with this fight. It's got a clear-cut path to victory, and somehow feels easier to me than Demon Souls Storm King, which arguably had less mechanics. Yhorm was a footnote in his own game. What a shame. At number 23, the Cleric Beast from Bloodborne. The first boss, it's bound to be easy, but has enough moveset complexity that it doesn't rank in the top 15. At number 22, Divine Dragon from Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. The only Sekiro boss to appear on today's list, the Folding Screen Monkeys didn't even qualify. It's a cinematic fight, but I've died a few times in the final portion to those wind slices, as the dragon can combo them surprisingly well. At number 21, Vort of the Boreal Valley from Dark Souls 3. I adore this boss fight, but we're all aware you can just roll to the left or right when he charges, and then wait for the ice breath so you can slip to his side and whack that booty to win the day. At number 20, Deacons of the Deep from Dark Souls 3. I honestly thought they'd be higher on today's list, but other fights I'm covering use their same mechanics, but are easier. And they have the ability to curse you in the final phase of the fight, which immediately buffs their score. At number 19, Iudex Gundyr from Dark Souls 3. The tutorial boss of the game, he's a fabulous challenge for new players, but insanely easy for someone like myself who's played these games a ton. My personal easiest Dark Souls 3 boss, maybe that's a hot take. At number 18, Moonlight Butterfly from Dark Souls. While I recognise that the boss doesn't have crazy patterns and can be taken down quickly if you're remotely leveled, I have had runs where I badly dodge the magic it fires, and early game magic damage can be brutal in Dark Souls 1. At number 17, Old Monk from Demon Souls. This is simply a case of me only getting to experience the AI variant, as I've never owned a copy of Demon Souls while the servers were up. No PS5, so I've had to play the PS3 version, and I tend to get here over-leveled so the old monk crumbles into dust. And at number 16, we have the Brain Sucker from Bloodborne's Chalice Dungeons. Yep, they're available for this video. A normal enemy given a health bar, the only reason it doesn't qualify for today's list is because some players may struggle with its AI constantly spamming its paralysis shot, and the grab can be deceptive to dodge. Plus, number 15 is Brain Sucker but easier. That's a hot take, you'll find out in a moment. With all that being said, my top 15 easiest Soulsborne bosses, ranked. Let me know your easiest fight down below. At number 15, we have the Witches of Hemwick from Bloodborne. Often considered the easiest boss of the game, and with good reason, the Witches of Hemwick are an easier variant of the Brain Sucker. What do I mean by this? Well, their main form of attack, outside of spawning their minions, is to fire paralysis magic that, once connected, allows them to go in for a grab attack. It's the exact same strategy as the Brain Sucker, except the witches can't hit you with normal attacks and instead flee the scene anytime you get close. They do have a little AoE they can use, but it's not necessarily that effective. There are also minions wandering around the arena that can attack you if you breathe in their direction, and they can certainly build up if left unchecked, but most players are able to burst both witches down before they can become a true hazard. Or you can cheese the fight by selling all your insight, which makes the witches unable to spawn their minions, giving you an extremely easy win that involves dodging some magic once the second phase hits, and that's it. The witches also spawn in the same location to start with, and it's entirely possible to attack the second witch before you even killed the first, as they're both in the arena. But I like that this fight makes you think for a moment. It's a bit dull on repeat playthroughs, and I kinda wish we had something a bit more exciting, more befitting of this insanely well-detailed arena. Yet there is a place in Soulsborne for gimmick fights and easy fights. Without them, we don't get balance or levels to the difficulty. And given the Rune Workshop tool is locked behind this encounter, it makes sense to not make it too tedious. At number 14, we have the Mimic Tier from Elden Ring. I really love the concept of the Mimic Tier, having a boss that forms into an exact replica of the player character, adopting their moveset to provide a small challenge where you face down your own build. It can teach you things about the way you're playing and whether you're using your strategies to the best effect. It's also just a cool arena and vibe, but ultimately it's an AI of an NPC invader who just happens to be kitted out in whatever you decide. There's only so much complexity the Mimic Tier can be afforded. I really enjoy every time I get to fight it, and I like kitting myself out in different builds to have different experiences, but that's not how everyone does it. You can enter the boss room completely naked, forcing the Mimic Tier to turn into exactly that. A naked human with no weapons, armor, or shields. Yeah, you can cheese the fight, re-equip your armor after you've entered, and bish bash bosh, easy win. I don't personally do that because I really like the fight, and even if it's easy, it still feels novel and entertaining, kinda like the Dark Link fight from Ocarina of Time if done a bit better. And it sets Elden Ring at a high bar that the Mimic Tier is the only proper main boss fight from the game that's appearing on this list. At number 13, we have the Asylum Demon from Dark Souls. The representative for the big-bootied behemoths in today's video, the Asylum Demon is the tutorial boss of Dark Souls, and as such, he's not a particularly complex fight. He's based on the Vanguard from Demon Souls, and while you might wonder why Vanguard doesn't appear on today's list, keep in mind in that game, you had one shot at the boss or you had to restart your playthrough. I don't count the 4-1 rematch. Asylum Demon, meanwhile, is a mandatory fight that you have to overcome to play the rest of the game. Once you've explored the whole asylum, avoiding the first fight that aims to teach the player to run away, you immediately get to plunging attack the Asylum Demon every time you re-enter the arena. That's a free third of his health bar gone every time you attempt the fight. And with a non-broken weapon, you'll be doing solid damage with every attack afterwards. If you're new to Soulsborne, you might struggle with your stamina management or get clipped on a few attacks, but for veteran players, this fight shouldn't pose a threat or give you any fear. Its butt slam is basically a free hit or two once it lands, and the mace swings come out slow and methodical, making them very easy to roll through, or in some cases, simply strafing around the boss to avoid them. It didn't need to be complex or difficult, just enough that new players will learn some of the basics. It's also worth noting you could just get firebombs as your starting gift and pelt the fucker with flames on your first encounter, netting you the Demon's Great Hammer in your new game run. Nice. At number 12, we have Ceaseless Discharge from Dark Souls, another boss with a cheese method. If you choose to fight this poorly named lumbering behemoth fair and square, you'll be dodging to the left, dodging to the right, hitting very easy to avoid arm swipes, and doing significant damage as you go. He's a big foe, but his only attack method is to either shoot fire at you or crush you with his arms, and as long as you stick near him, the latter will be his main form of attack. It's just a very telegraphed moveset, which comes as a surprise when he's the first fight in the Demon Ruins. You're expecting something tough down here, and you don't really get it. Or you can be like most of the player base and just say, fuck it, I don't feel like fighting. Trigger the boss, run all the way back to the entrance fog, and wait for the results of your work to speak for themselves. Ceaseless will attempt to jump at you, gripping onto the floor near the fog gate, and if you attack him in this moment, he will lose his grip and fall out of the arena to his doom. Does it make much sense? No. Is it an easy quick kill, allowing access to the lower demon ruins? Yes. This is an easiest boss fights list. Cheese methods are fully valid, and if they're considered more attractive than fighting the boss head on, that has to be taken into account. Yet at least Ceaseless can kill unaware players, and most won't know about said block of cheese when they first play the game. Instead, you deal with easy to dodge and punish attacks, pick your favorite flavor of ice cream, go nuts. At number 11, we have the Celestial Emissary from Bloodborne. Now, if this is our number 11, you have to imagine our top 10 is crazy. The Celestial Emissary is encountered twice in the game. Once in the main game, where after exploring up a cathedral ward, you run into the Lumen Flower Garden. Here, you have to attack the kin enemies, mowing them down, before targeting the one hiding away behind the rest. This shy little goober is the target, and after getting them to half health, they'll explode into a bigger variant of themselves, making their hitbox larger and their attacks easier to dodge. They can use magic, but you'll likely have the damage to kill them off way before that happens, with the only real danger being the smaller kin that continue spawning as you fight. If you have a good crowd control weapon, or a gem that does high damage to kin-type enemies, you'll be fine. And if you don't, you'll also be fine. Then there's the encounter in the Chalice dungeons, where they skip the first half of the fight and just give you the giant kin on his own with a full health bar. It's here when you realize just how easy this boss is, because even with a damage and health buff due to the Depth 5 Chalice, you're still ruining this guy's day without breaking a sweat. At least he got his magic off once in the Chalice dungeon, and that encounter gave me more footage to work with. But looking at the rest of this list, I'm not shocked to see him not make the top 10, because the rest of our entries are very much the, they'll be dead in 20 seconds category of boss fights. Let's go see him. At number 10, we have the Twin Dragon Riders from Dark Souls 2. The slightly more powerful version of the Dragon Rider boss fight from earlier in the game. We faced two of these powerful foes after meeting Queen Nishandra, and they act as the mid-level boss that we have to defeat to reach the next bonfire. Why I have this boss so high on today's list is quite simple. Their level of skill doesn't match the point in the game we fight them. We've taken down the 4 Great Lords to even reach Castle Drangleic. These two are but a stone on the road for us to kick. And yet I have died to them once or twice. But nowadays, it's so easy to rush them and ruin their health bar. The ranged attacker starts on an upper platform, but the moment he comes down, the fight is as good as over because he dies in a couple of hits, while the main Dragon Rider dies in around 8 to 10 hits. Yes, they do decent damage, but it's a slow moveset that you'll have experienced before. The fight ends almost immediately, and the real challenge is just the run back to the boss arena if you happen to die and didn't find that hidden bonfire. But that won't happen. This is the epitome of a filler boss that didn't need to exist, and I will stand by that opinion for the rest of time. It actually shocks me that while I'm scripting this video, my Dark Souls 2 community boss ranking was still active, and people actually found the Twin Dragon Riders harder than quite a few bosses, and I'm just like, are we playing the same game? But that's just me. At number 9, we have the Dragon Rider from Dark Souls 2. It only makes sense that the solo version of this fight would be easier than the gank, and potentially being the first boss in the game, the level of difficulty here is relatively fair. The Dragon Rider can be fought in 3 different variants depending on your actions throughout Hyde's Tower of Flame. See, there are 2 levers on the path to the boss that, when triggered, will raise platforms in the boss room to make the arena larger, as if you face the boss without having triggered these levers, the arena will be rather small, difficult to move around, and easy for you to get knocked off of. Most people will raise the levers, face the Dragon Rider's slow, simple to dodge moveset, and kill it without much trouble, as you will do good damage as long as you've leveled up from your start of the game stats. Sure, I whiffed a bunch of dodges in this footage because I hadn't played Dark Souls 2 in a year, sue me, but don't let me playing badly affect the reality of this fight's difficulty. The real cheese though is that if you don't raise the platforms in the arena, you can get Dragon Rider to immediately fall off of the map himself, winning the fight instantly. Come on, this is meant to be the Dragon Rider's arena at its toughest, and yet the boss can't even capitalize on what was meant to be his defining gimmick. Somehow still not the easiest boss in this game though. At number 8, we have the Covetous Demon from Dark Souls 2. Now let me get this out of the way, I love the Covetous Demon. He's a goofy guy who just happens to absolutely suck at being a soulsborne boss fight. He's not got a lot of movement speed, doesn't do much damage outside of a few flops and fat rolls, and his defining attack, where he swallows your character and unequips your armor, is cool, but he gives you ample time to put your armor back on if you're caught, and that's exactly it. If you're caught. Most people don't even know he can strip his victims. Yet I can't bring myself to call the Covetous Demon the easiest fight in the game. Yes, he's simple to kill, his HP can be smashed into pieces, and his level of aggression just doesn't match the point of the game he's fought in, but I can see he's trying. They even brought him back for the DLC by throwing him in a cave in Elium Lois. But if the Covetous Demon did more contact damage with his flops, we'd then be getting One Reborn critiques, where it just feels annoying to even approach the boss. The moveset is the problem here, not the damage output. Yet at least he is a proper boss fight. I can't say that for the final Dark Souls 2 entry on this list that we will see relatively soon. At number 7, we have Leechmonger from Demon Souls. Another boss I actually really enjoy. The Leechmonger is a guilty pleasure. He's just another goofy guy who also just happens to suck at being a Soulsborne boss fight. Like the Covetous Demon, Leechmonger tries to do something interesting with its moveset, but it just doesn't really work out. You see, as you damage Leechmonger, it can regenerate its health. Slowly but surely, and yeah, on New Game Plus or Plus Plus, I can see this being an issue. But strictly talking about that first encounter, and especially if you leave the Valley of Defilement for last during each of your Archstone passes, your damage will be fine. Then, if you're remotely good at context clues, you might try using some charcoal pine resin because most enemies in the valley are weak to fire. And if so, you've found Leechmonger's true weakness. Lighting that blade on fire will cut through his health in seconds, to the point where, for my footage, I had to stop attacking. You might get covered in leeches and have your movement speed inhibited, but what's the problem when you can heal incredibly quickly from any attacks, and you can burn the rest of the boss's health bar away at a moment's notice? I love the Leechmonger. I know there are ways the boss can be difficult, which is why it's only number 7 on today's list, but even then, I can't defend it against fire. At number 6, we have the Prowling Magus and the Congregation from Dark Souls 2. My easiest fight from this game. Why is this a boss fight? It's a bunch of regular enemies with a couple mages thrown in, and you're told to slaughter them. They come out of nowhere right after you're introduced to the Brightstone Cove spiders and feel so random in their placement. Yes, they make sense lore-wise, but difficulty-wise, this could have been an email. Why give them a health bar? Just make them regular enemies, but have the Magus himself be a non-respawning enemy that drops a unique item upon defeat. There, I just fixed this boss fight by removing the boss fight. The only danger comes from the clerics, whose magic can be surprisingly strong if you're not dodging correctly. And this might be the only case I'll accept for the Prowling Magus fight being harder than the Covetous Demon. But even then, you just need a small element of crowd control, or to target the clerics first when you enter so they can't be a problem down the line. There's just something so comical about walking into a sermon and absolutely slaughtering everyone in the vicinity. It feels wrong. This is the epitome of Dark Souls 2's boss design fails, and a perfect example of why this game has so many easy bosses. I don't have anything else to say. They're not even iconically bad. They're just bland. As Gordon Ramsay would say, it's fucking raw! Did you know we're trying to reach 35,000 subscribers by the end of the year? After the rest of this video, consider parrying that subscribe button to help us out with that goal. Or consider becoming a channel member. It's $4.99, you get early access to future videos, and shoutouts at the end of each video as well. Links in the description. Back to the list. At number 5, we have the Adjudicator from Demon's Souls. The boss of one of the toughest levels in the game, 4-1, the Adjudicator is laughably simple, to the point where I've memed on him multiple times every time I use him in a video because of how quickly his fight goes by in my footage. You drop down to the lowest level of the arena, hit the boss's wound while avoiding his easy-to-dodge cleaver swipes, and once he stuns, he falls over and you smack the bird atop his head for an easy victory. Whether you kill this guy in one go or you have to attack the wound a second time, you're never gonna feel in danger. That is, unless you're new and you don't understand the mechanics, which is totally fair. Hitting that rubbery skin and failing to do damage can be confusing at first. Or you can stay on the top level and snipe the bird atop the head with arrows, which will net you an achievement in the PS5 remake. It's slower than the normal method, but safer, and many may appreciate that this fight gives you multiple easy approaches to winning. The only downside to the Adjudicator is that if he does kill you for whatever reason, the boss run back is painfully long. Not as hard as 4-2, but it is up there. I still can't believe people found Phalanx easier than the Adjudicator in my Demon's Souls community boss ranking. I'm never getting over that. At number 4, we have Pinwheel from Dark Souls. I think we all thought he'd be in the top 3, if not the top 1, but I think about the battles ahead and I agree. Pinwheel, you've been spared embarrassment for the first time in your life, and yet I can't deny that Pinwheel is still insanely easy. The poster child for a poorly balanced boss, he's so fragile in terms of his HP, as he's set up like an early game boss you'd fight before Blighttown, but most players aren't going into the catacombs that early due to the skeletons. So unless you know the shortcut down and you're willing to do the climb back up, you're gonna wait until you can warp to go face the man. He can shoot fireballs at you and clone himself, and that's it. His attacks come out very slow, and even when all his clones are attacking you at the same time, you never get the sense you're in any danger, which is a shame because his boss fight is absolutely dripping in atmosphere to the point where you're hoping he'll do something cool and become a threat. And it just never happens. Bless him, he's a meme at this point. When you see an easy boss, that's a pinwheel right there. A moniker he'll never be able to shirk. He's like tissue paper blown away by a stiff breeze. So, who the fuck is above him? At number 3, we have True King Allant from Demon's Souls. The final boss of the game, this fight is dripping with lore. Nobody is denying that, as you see what the King of Boletaria truly is in your last encounter. This is what the power of demons will grant you, a blob that can barely protect himself, only using honeyed words to implore the player to stop. As a fight, you can wail on this man without remorse and without much danger. His attacks hit decently hard if he connects, but they're so slow and so sluggish, you can afford to take a hit, keep attacking, and just heal through. His boss fight manages to tell a story. Is this power worth it? From the outside looking in, that's a definite no, especially when True King Allant can't defend himself from our power when it matters most. As this is a difficulty ranking though, He's sitting up here at the top, but I wouldn't consider him one of the worst fights in the series or anything. He has his place. He justifies his existence. He just happens to meet all the criteria for today's video, and then some.
Don't you understand? No one wishes to go on.
At number 2, we have the man-eater boar from the Bloodborne Chalice dungeons. I'm so fucking tired of talking about the chalices, I'm not gonna lie to you. We've had 3 videos recently where I've had to bring them up, and hopefully this will be the last for a while. The man-eater boar is a pig that charges at you. You dodge it, and then you kill it in 2 hits. A regular enemy given a boss health bar, this is the covetous demon of Bloodborne, and yet while faster than our friend from Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne makes it easier to dodge attacks, and once out of the way, a charged Kirkhammer will make bacon out of this porky boy. Technicalities are fun. I normally wouldn't bother counting this as a boss, but Pinwheel deserves a break, you know? Have you noticed I'm filling this segment with random sentences because there's genuinely no moveset to talk about? It's that basic of a fight? Well, yeah, let's just get to number 1, shall we? At number 1, we have the Soldier of Godric from Elden Ring. Give the man his flowers, bless him as he tries his hardest. The Soldier of Godric is the tutorial boss of Elden Ring. He is a regular soldier who worked his way through the ranks, probably coming from a war-torn home, maybe no parents, a wife back home, 2 kids to take care of. He isn't getting a high amount of pay, just enough to fund his family while taking a bit of overtime to patrol the Limgrave Caves on his off day. But on his patrol, he runs into the Tarnished. He charges forwards, bravely willing to defy his fate. In his mind, Rick, soldier of God. Power incarnate. And then he's pushed back, parried, and a blade runs through his stomach. His body turns cold, his veins iced up from the shock, the light in his eyes fading as he stares up at his killer. The Tarnished pulls back, removing the Soldier of Godric from his sword. For he wasn't Rick, soldier of God, like those of us at home wish him to be. His delusions of grandeur, the memes of the Elden Ring community fueled him on like wildfire, only for him to fall in battle. A footnote, now forgotten. Soldier of Godric, you are a legend. May you find your worth in the waking world, my friend, as Rick, soldier of God. And that's my list. Which Soulsborne boss is the easiest in your opinion? Let me know down below. And do you think I got it right? Be sure to parry that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on all of my future videos. Thank you so much for your support. My social medias are on screen now. Feel free to follow where you feel comfortable. I recommend my Twitter or my Discord. Mainly my Twitter, it's the best place for me to be active. A massive shout out to all of my YouTube channel members. Thank you for supporting me for another month. It costs $4.99 and you get early access to my videos, as well as a shout out both in the description and at the end of each video. It's very cool. I'll see you guys next time for another video. Adios.